My name is Mark McNeill, and a lot of people know me as Frosty through radio worlds, through Dublab, which is a nonprofit internet radio station that I co-founded way back in 1999. But I guess if somebody asks me on the street, what's my role, what do I do, more and more so kind of thinking of the idea of Sonic Explorer because it can take a lot of different forms. I think maybe I love vague things too. I like to have things open enough to feel like I can explore and not have any boundaries. But I think really the idea of being a Sonic Explorer can be radio and it can be film, it can be art, but all of it to me ties back to sound and music. But I think that music was kind of something I got into early on, and then it's opened up broader into the idea of sound itself. The way I first came across the Environments record series was really just sitting there and digging through crates of records and pulling out a record. And when you're looking at crates of records, usually, they're in the crate vertically in the record store in a box, and you're flipping through, and so you're seeing the kind of very top portion of the record, and that's kind of your initial visual cue. And the visual cue is always kind of the first clue to what might be within that record. And I think that with the Environment series, you see at the very top, you see very boldly, it says Environments. So if you're digging through a crate of records and you're seeing maybe the kind of top part of somebody's pompadour, or you're seeing some kind of, the top of a painting or something, or Barbra Streisand's eyebrows, and then you come across this kind of bold statement, Environments, that makes you pause. And so for me, I don't remember the exact moment, but surely it was in a thrift store, digging through records, dusty bins, and pausing and seeing Environments. But I do know that this one was the first one that I came across. So I think that I, like many people, had my first engagement with the Environment series and continue to this day to engage with these records through record digging and through going to flea markets and going to garage sales and going to thrift stores, but also being in, you could be in an expensive record store, and that's where you might see the mint condition copies of the Environment series. From the first moment and from this first record, it pulled me in and made me so curious about what else was there. There's so much that's said on these records. You read, there's so much accompanying text, but at the same time, there is kind of a lack of clarity and a bit of mystery to it, because there's a Hucksterism at play here, and you start to wonder, who are all these people giving these quotes? Restful and conducive to sleep, Betty Raw. She's a housewife from Lewisburg, Tennessee. Does she exist? I'm not sure. Or useful for hypnosis, Paula Coughlin, a secretary from Yorkville, Illinois. This one is genius because I think that no one would question it because they don't even know what it is. Beautiful, enthralled, and it's from John Gordon Matsoukas from Evanston, Illinois. He's a Navy yeoman, which I have no idea if anyone even knows what a yowman is. So this is genius to put a lot of very vague but strange kind of quotes and attribute them on the back of these covers. The funny thing these records do is starts to make you question, because it has an air of authority. Not only the volume you're playing it at, but it starts to talk about lovemaking, and it says, or meditation, how long to meditate. And so you're listening to these, and I, for one, started second guessing, wow, okay, I'm meditating wrong, or am I lovemaking wrong? Because it says here that most people make love too quickly. So suddenly you're starting to question how you make love. So this is a world that is built on research, syntonic research here you see on most of the records. And so I started to think about this laboratory where it was all these people, with EKG meters and brainwave scanners setting up and actually analyzing people's reactions to these records. I mean, I can imagine people on a shag carpet with meters hooked up to them, and Irv in the background playing a tape of a heartbeat pumping and seeing if their lovemaking was correct, and then comes on the back of the record, it actually works. So if you follow these instructions, it can be amazingly effective, very realistic, and the second time was incredible. I guess that's the time that they listened to Irv's instructions and made love in the proper tempo. I didn't really know what field recording was until I got these records, and here we have the wood-masted sailboat and a country stream record, and if you look inside there, you have Irv with headphones on and a recorder, looking really serious with his recorder on a log. And I was totally blown away. I'm like, man, this guy's out there in the field and really doing this. And so it was actually my very first exposure to field recording in general. And I didn't really know about the mechanics that went into it, but it did kind of send me down the path to want to know more about field recording. And so I started to discover more about field recording in general and start to understand the artistic approaches to field recording, and then maybe also the more rigid approaches to field recording that might be of a more academic approach that says, you've got to put your microphone down, leave the tape running, and see what it captures. Whereas there are artistic kind of approaches to it. In Irv's world, there's also the deeper kind of element of computers being used, and he does unveil that in the Psychologically Ultimate Seashore, the use of a computer, but also the idea that this was, bringing together, and it's an amalgam of field recordings. So you're getting the Psychologically Ultimate Seashore through his efforts to bring a lot of things together. We're here at the LA River today, and so I thought this place is actually a really great, kind of analog to what he was doing in a way, because we've got the beauty of the river. This is actually a natural river, but you have these concrete embankments here that the Army Corps of Engineers put in as a flood control channel. You've got Skittles wrappers, you've got sleeping bags, there's a wiffle ball embedded in the bank here, but then you also have reeds and bamboo, and you have these beautiful kind of willowy trees, and you have great blue heron and snowy egrets and cormorants and all these amazing, it's a blend of nature and also civilization. And these records in many ways are just that same kind of blend, where you actually, the core ingredients are built from nature. You've got seashores, you've got recordings that are actually out there in nature, unadulterated, but then they're being processed through spliced together segments of tape, through computer analyzation, through all of these things that are taking nature and shaping them. So much like a flood control channel that's actually shaping a natural flowing river that wants to meander its own way, but the risk is it'll break the bank. This is putting it into controlled kind of flow. So these records are really kind of a controlled flow of nature. It's something that is raw, but then kind of, brought together and directed in a really specific manner. This was in an era where people started opening up to eating healthy, eating vegetarian, doing yoga, doing meditation, kind of religious practices from the East, all these things that people had started experimenting with in the 60s, and by the 70s, had opened up more. And so these things started becoming a little more mainstream, but it was still kind of the edge. But now, flash forward decades later, and this stuff's actually being, considered, and people are thinking of the real impacts of mindfulness and the idea of, nature, and especially in kind of crumbling ecologies, to be able to hear nature and enjoy the benefits of natural sounds. This is now kind of more than ever impactful. I think that this music, I shouldn't say music, I'm going to stop myself. These sounds pressed on records and cassettes are totally utilitarian, and it seems that it was directed towards utilitarian kind of use, which was new. I think that people in record stores didn't really think about the idea of utilitarian records. There were things that were, kind of maybe lectures that were on record, and there was self-help records and things like this, but those were more dialogue based. But these records being sonic in nature, that was a new thing for stores. And I think that what they were kind of shooting for, the audience they were marketing to, was an audience that would be more of a music based audience. So it was this perfect kind of balancing act between something that's utilitarian, but then something that can be considered artistic. People really took a lot from these records, literally took a lot from these records and sampled. Everyone I know who is into sample-based music at one point or another, including myself, the very first sample-based song I made used wood-masted sailboat, and we sampled a choice moment of that record and turned it into this kind of repetitive beat. So these were these kind of open, expansive sonic palettes that provided sonic seasoning, both for producers but also for DJs. These records used in kind of long-form ambient DJ sets or experimental DJ sets are, essential to have in the bag. And so many people have utilized these records because they're just building blocks. So we were earlier saying that these are utilitarian, and we've been swatting clouds of gnats with these. So Irv had, there's another surprising use for these. On these records, Irv might have said you could play them at different speeds, but the thing that he doesn't say is the idea of layering these together. And so I think on a DJ front, when you start stacking these records up and you've got intonation on top of optimum aviary, on top of a country stream, on top of wind in the trees, you're starting to kind of build this world that also is of our world but not of our world, because it's taking all these moments in time and snapshots of times and places and creating a new world through them. These are things you're not worried about keeping in pristine condition because they're meant to be used. I think Irv wanted them to be used, and I think that he would appreciate, the fact that it says here hypnotic. So if you're using this to create further, deeper hypnosis by, implementing it in sample-based music or DJ set, then that's part of the overall plan, maybe. I think the recording that I use more than any other, and again, it's getting back to utilitarian use of these records, is Psychologically Ultimate Seashore. Part of it is, this strange dichotomy again. I live in Los Angeles. A lot of the work I do through the radio and through journalism has to do with Los Angeles and this environment. I'm really into people and place. And so Los Angeles is synonymous with the Pacific Ocean. I live in the Silver Lake neighborhood of Los Angeles, which on a good day is 30 minutes from the ocean. On a rough day can be a couple hours from the ocean. And so I don't make it out to the ocean that much, but I do like to create radio that is evocative of California and the West Coast. And so an easy way, a kind of direct main line to get there, is putting on Psychologically Ultimate Seashore. He says it was recorded partially in Malibu. I will say Malibou, so maybe it's a different Malibu, but it's not really all California. Maybe none of it is California, but I definitely use Psychologically Ultimate Seashore in radio shows. I sample it for things. I use it so much as kind of sonic seasoning and to create the idea of a place, because more so you can look on the internet, and this is a world that wouldn't exist probably without Irv, this world of ASMR and meditation videos and things on the internet, but you can find 12-hour ocean recordings on YouTube. Not all of them are that great, and you're going to get some kind of weird, maybe too noisy seashore. So his is a very contoured and shaped seashore that is perfect to incorporate, and you play a snippet of it and people automatically know this is the ocean. So being in California, this is kind of a calling card record for me to be able to play this ultimate seashore and share that kind of glimpse of the ocean with the world. All of these are very evocative, and you can almost kind of, transpose your own experience on these records and connect to these as much as you want to, and they're really a placebo in many ways. And I think that if you want to believe that this was, you know, this being was a psychoacoustic experience, or that this seashore was the psychologically ultimate seashore, it'll take you there. So it takes a bit of a leap of faith. But if you're ready to kind of go along with it and jump into Irv's world, these records will take you there. If you're a skeptic, they also prove really interesting because, you know, as just kind of weird artifacts of a time and place, there's a lot to be had here.